Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pitstop February 2020 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers that burning question in your mind. What's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? This month, I talk with Chakkaradeep Chinnakonda Chandran. We like to call him Chaks, and in fact, that's what he likes to go by, Chaks. He is a senior program manager on the SharePoint engineering team, focused on enabling people to design and build productivity apps with SharePoint lists using native capabilities and enhancing them with Power Apps and Power Automate. Chaks and I talk about which tools people should have in their Maker toolkit, plus what it means for a feature to move beyond commercial cloud into the government cloud. Consider this the message center for everyone. This is your place to stay informed, current, and ahead of the ever-curving Microsoft 365 roadmap. Before we get into all the new features rolled out in February 2020, I want to take a moment to wish all the leaplings, leapers, and leapsters a happy birthday. Happy birthday to all those born on February 29th. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, all you leapsters. Happy birthday to you. And I want to put a small note here. The solar year is a little longer than 365 days, which is why we have February 29th every 4 years. This is the reason we almost called our product Microsoft 365.24219. Whew! However, thanks to all the leapsters, due to all your every 4-year patience, it's simply named Microsoft 365. With that, let's get on to the roadmap, starting with employee engagement. Employee engagement. We have a number of new feature releases that fit the employee engagement category, and 3 out of 4 of them are very worldly. You'll know what I mean when we get there. Worldly indeed. First up, Mover migration is now available worldwide. Since Microsoft announced the acquisition of Mover, those migration specialists now working at Microsoft, this includes admin-led and self-service offerings so that more customers can move to the cloud as demand grows. Mover helps make it easier than ever for customers to migrate files to Microsoft 365 for free. Mover supports migration from over a dozen cloud service providers. This includes Box, Dropbox, Ignite, and Google Drive into OneDrive and SharePoint, enabling seamless file collaboration across Microsoft 365 apps and services, including the Office apps and Microsoft Teams. Note, this is not yet available for government cloud customers. Next up, Microsoft 365 Live Events Assistant Program is in public preview, and that public preview is now available. Microsoft 365 is launching a public preview of a new support service for customers to help deliver live events using Teams, Stream, or Yammer. The new program provides assistance to help customers better understand functionality and assist with the setup and delivery of live event broadcasts. This is to help you be more familiar with setting up and running your own live event, or they can be available during your live event to help if you have any questions or as issues arise. During the preview, the assistance program is free to customers using Teams, Stream, or Yammer to deliver their events. There's a link that we'll have in our show notes where you can go and sign up and try out this preview today. Next up, Global Reader Experience is now available in the SharePoint Admin Center. Users who are assigned this role will have read-only access to all information and settings in the new SharePoint Admin Center. This feature is related to the Global Admin role that was introduced in September 2019 about support throughout all workloads in Microsoft 365. Global Reader is the read-only counterpart to the Global Admin role to help reduce the number of global admins in your organization. To use the program, assign the Global Reader role instead of the Global Admin role to users who need to view all your organization settings but not edit them. For example, to plan, audit, or investigate. Use this and other role assignments to best delegate administration to who can do what and what they are able to do. We're gradually rolling this out to commercial clouds now and government clouds in early March 2020. Last feature, updating the sharing page in the SharePoint Admin Center. We've brought all the sharing settings from the classic sharing page to now appear on the modern sharing page in SharePoint Admin Center. This makes it easier to set up and configure external sharing for OneDrive and SharePoint. Key settings include the ability to configure who is allowed to share externally, as well as default link permissions for your organization. You can, however, further restrict sharing for each individual site and individual people's OneDrive. Note, should you need to visit the Classic sharing page, you can switch the SharePoint Admin Center back to Classic View. So that is it for employee engagement. Coming up next, my interview with Chaks to explore more of what you can do with SharePoint lists when integrated with Power Apps and Power Automate. So it's nice to be here in Building 34 with Chaks, and I'm going to say just Chaks now that you and I are one-on-one together. Would you mind just giving your full name and then maybe the basis of Chaks?
Yep. So my full name is Chakkaradeep Chandran, and when I moved to New Zealand from India, the name is pretty hard even for, in my culture, to kind of get used to it. So I was looking for a shorter name, obviously, but something that still had something about me in it. And Chaks was something that came up immediately. A lot of folks here know me as Chaks, and my full name, Chakkaradeep.
Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now. I have known you for quite some time, pre-Microsoft, but if you can just give our audience a little sense of where you started and then what got you into this crazy no-code, low-code solution area.
Yeah, so I started my career as a .NET developer, ASP.NET developer, and then I got bored of building web pages from scratch when I was looking at SharePoint in the same company where I was working. Intergen was the company that I was working at that time, that they were able to stand up sites within minutes than an ASP.NET and integrating all of the auth pieces and whatnot. So then I was like, hey, I need to go from this bespoke app development to something that is very specific to area. And I got two choices to choose from, either Dynamics CRM or SharePoint. And I asked, what is good and bad about SharePoint? I said, it's very complex. Don't go there. I didn't listen to that advice. I think that was the best thing I did in my life. I chose SharePoint, and I loved it since then. And from developer, I moved to a consultant where I not only help companies build solutions for SharePoint, but also architected all of the on-premises solutions for SharePoint as well. And then I got the desire to work for the product, and I joined Microsoft.
One of the things that I remember very visually pre-Microsoft, when we were working with you as an Intergen employee, you were the type of person that I would have said, we need somebody that can help provide a solution. Chaks is perfect for that. And one of the things that you helped us with was one of our field and partner demos, the Fabricam site. Today, it's very modern, out of the box. You can do a lot, obviously. At the time, it really was to highlight the value and the things that you could do on the platform.
And we used to build a lot of web content management. That was the WCM was the space. SharePoint was really huge. And we built a lot of sites for New Zealand governments, from Navy to New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. So I loved those days when we were able to use SharePoint as a website, especially for public-facing website.
Well, I think it gave you the right foundation. You said you started off writing just fresh out-of-the-box code and then accelerating that with solutions, which leads you into really what we're here to talk about, which is a lot of these use cases hinge on the integration work that you and your team are doing, and specifically we're talking about SharePoint plus the Power Platform.
Yes.
So I wanted to, before we dive into the feature that just released this month, when you think about giving people more tools in their toolkit, these makers, and obviously pushing that down the line where anybody can do what it is they're trying to accomplish, what are some of the bigger design elements? And maybe even you can highlight some scenarios when people think of connecting SharePoint, most likely lists, with the Power Platform.
I think SharePoint as a platform has been a very powerful platform for the citizen developers or makers. If you go back from 2007 version to 2010 and SharePoint Designer and even business connectivity services, you had the power to go connect to external data sources as well as do a lot of things in the platform with lists and libraries. The Power Platform is the evolution of that space, I would say. Obviously, things changed a lot from on-premises world to this cloud architecture, and it's very different how you build applications, how you host your applications, how you integrate those applications with SharePoint. And that's where I think as much as scenarios and features we build in the product for end users to work, it's only going to be limited. And at some point in time, you want to extend that scenarios and features and capabilities to do what your business is asking you to do, to what your organization expects you to do. And that's when integration with Power Platform comes as a key piece for list and libraries and even pages in SharePoint. A very good example that we talked to the customer recently is they use SharePoint List as ticketing system. So when people send an email to their IT support email alias, they have a Power Automate flow that picks up that email and creates a service ticket in the list and assigns the right owner based on the ticket type and inferring some content inside the email, because that's a template they give and the template has some parameters. That system basically uses a workflow engine, Power Automate, right? In old scenarios, we would have used SharePoint Designer workflows, but this goes beyond what SharePoint Designer workflow offered, from just looking at what I can do with SharePoint to how I can use Azure Active Directory to get who the user is, what the department is, what would be the right ticketing category that I need to put, talking with Azure Cognitive Services to infer the sentiment and then drive some insights into the list metadata to help support engineers understand certain things. These possibilities wouldn't have happened with SharePoint Designer workflows, right? So that's the extra capabilities you get with Flow. Beyond that, when you go to the ticketing list and you open a ticket, great, I can see the ticket, right? But if you now want to put the magic, I would say, to bring in related tickets or recently closed tickets for this user or recently tickets that fall into this bucket, you now have to go beyond just that single item. You might want to go to the entire list, and the list could have a million tickets, right? And how you optimize that, how you perform that, how you build an application to drive that. So we have integrations with Power Apps to bring that experience in SharePoint. So you could either open the custom form, customize with Power Apps, and bring that experience right there in the list, or you can build a standalone Canvas app in Power Apps that connects to these lists and builds the same experience, but available in a tablet, in mobile, and every form factor you can think. So that's how we see how a native experience that we provide, which is still going to be great, but giving you the power to go and build the extra capabilities you want in the platform.
And this is where I think the naming of the Power Platform is just
Absolutely.
that when you need a little extra power, or
Yep.
in this case, you just described a lot extra power.
Yep.
But that's not to overlook the fact that you and team are doing a lot of functionality that's just native out of the box
Yep.
to accommodate not lesser than or lower level, but different types of solutions that maybe don't have the same requirements.
Exactly. End users are a very different audience than makers. You can have makers, work on something and work with them as well with simple expressions or, other workarounds that you might have to go above and beyond to do certain things. And Power Platform is very flexible in that. But as soon as end users come in that just come to office every day, day in, day out, and they want to get things done, yes, we are investing a lot of out-of-the-box, features and capabilities to drive that, as well as the things that makers do and makers build. We need a really good experience to bring that to end users as well. And so both are important to us. It's one thing is, here's what SharePoint gives you, or here's what, the other scenarios, my IT organization has given me this. But that experience also we count to be a stellar experience that we build in the product.
Just hearing you describe it, I can see the spectrum of literally no-code type solutions. Low-code is where I start to think of the Power Platform, through to customization. We haven't even touched on the abilities of bringing in things you had mentioned, .NET from a long time ago, but the SharePoint framework and customizing even further. So with that, the feature that's landing February 2020 is not a new feature to the world, but a new feature to a certain set of our customers. And we listed it on the roadmap as Power Apps and Power Automate for lists and libraries specific to GCC. And for everybody out there, Government Cloud is an offering that we have specific to our government customers that have required data sovereignty and other compliance measures. If what you just described as a sampling of what our commercial customer has done, or one example of what you could do, and now this is coming to our government customers, Just pause for a moment. What does that mean from a release cadence? So if I'm a government customer now just getting this feature, where was it before? Who had it before me? And what does that mean just for how the SharePoint team releases in conjunction with the Power Platform team specific to government customers?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think many customers have this question. I'm glad that finally we are releasing Power Apps and Power Automate integrations in the GCC. It's something top of our list at every conference we have gone for the past 1.5 years. This has been the question: when does it come to GCC? And also there are other environments. There is GCC High and DoD and whatnot. So one of the things we really look into is these to us are very different environments. So we have SharePoint Online. So if you go to office365.com and you sign up, you get to sign up in, like everybody else, and you get a production environment. So that's our usual monthly cycle that we write code, we release, and we have our internal dogfood environment that PMs and devs and will get the opportunity to dogfood and give us feedback.
That's one of my favorite things. When I see the -df, I'm like,
exactly.
I'm in on the good stuff early.
Yeah, and then we talk to a lot with MVPs and special customers. Sometimes they get private previews, and we get a lot of feedback around that. And then we go to Microsoft IT environment, where it's actually very hard to get into. It's a very big environment, just like any other large enterprise, and has all sorts of issues you can think about that we capture: performance, usability, bugs, regressions. Once we are happy with that, we also have a process called experience review. So we go through that to release a feature, whether, hey, is this feature good? Can we go through step by step, understand what the user is going through? Does it make sense? We get feedback from everyone, and we know exactly what is broken. Oh yeah, we didn't think about that. So we get feedback and we go work on it. Once we cross that stage, we go to production environment, and that's where the targeted release or first release tenants, customers that have opted into getting be the first in the ring to receive updates. But these are all happening in the production environment still. And once we go there, we go to every tenant in SharePoint Online. So that means now the features are available to everyone.
And typically when we message or market that, we talk about that being 100% worldwide release.
Exactly.
But to our government cloud customers, what does it mean?
Yeah. So the government environment, the GCC especially, and all the other things are in a very different environment. Starting even authentication, domain, and everything is very different because for obvious compliance and sovereignty reasons. So we have to work not just in making sure the feature works, but also the endpoints are covered and respected. Anything around logging and whatever, it's compliant. The dependent services that SharePoint depends on, in this case specifically Power Automate and Power Apps, is up and running with every connector. They are working for scenarios that we envision they to work. So all of those things need to be in place, which is a hard work for engineering team, because now they have to in simple case, if production do this, if GCC do this, right? Yeah. But it's not as simple as that. There's so many complications in there. And sometimes we even have customers move back and forth between production to GCC, GCC to production. We have to consider those scenarios as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of things go in the fundamentals rather than does this feature is for GCC? Because once you go 100% worldwide, there's no take back, right?
That
the feature exists.
To me, sounds like it's additional coding. It's obviously a lot of additional testing.
Yep.
And you're reminding me of when we were getting ready for both SharePoint 2016 and 2019 that actually included components from the cloud that had been built for the cloud, been tested for the cloud, gotten a lot of feedback from users in the cloud, but was then to be packaged for on-premises, which is, who knows what that deployment looks like.
Yeah.
We know a lot. But considering that it's very different. The last part of the question is, then what is it like for what you know about on the Power Platform team in how they release, and where either your dependency or their dependency to bring these the technology together as a solution combined for the government cloud? What does that look like from the Power Platform side?
We work with Power Platform very closely to have the backend working initially. Our first step was to ensure that a government customer could log into their respective Power Automate and Power Apps portal and connect to SharePoint using the SharePoint connector and still build standalone apps in the Power Apps case, or flows that run in the context of automated flows, basically. Because manual flows, you have to go to the SharePoint to run it, but at least we wanted the automated flows, like when an item is created or modified, that should still work in a government cloud environments. So we focused heavily on that. And then comes the integration piece of when you click the flow button in the command bar in SharePoint, it should take you to the right environment, not to the production flow environment. Or if I do request sign off or any other out-of-the-box flow, it should go to the environment. So we had to work on that fundamentals. And in that fundamentals piece, I think one of the key things that does not include in this update for the GCC is the out-of-the-box flows. That still requires more work from both SharePoint and Power Platform teams, so we are working on that. But until then, the number one customer ask we had was, I want to run manual flows when I select an item or when I select a file, because that's my business process. I depend on it. Mm-hmm. So that scenario is available by end of March in GCC. Power Apps, you have custom forms and create an app experience from SharePoint, which is basically app from data in Power Apps. Those will work in GCC. So the out-of-the-box experience for flows when it comes to request sign-off and page approvals and hub join approvals, those are not yet released for the GCC environment, but we are working closely on those so that they are also available in GCC.
And to be clear, in the early days of just the production environment, not the GCC environment, that was also the same cadence. We didn't roll out everything to everybody. Yeah. And in fact, it took a little bit, for certain features to be delivered, like you had said, the base fundamentals, and then to build off of that, which means that's where we're now at for the government cloud. Yeah. That's great insight, and I think it's really helpful, especially to our government customers who always ask that question, when am I going to get it? And if you've been hearing that for a year and a half, it also just means it takes some time, especially when there's that unique environment. Well, if you had heard maybe a little bit of noise in the background, I think those were just people around here that knew you had shipped Power Apps and Power Flow to GCC, so they were clapping and happy about it. Besides the people next door who now know the news, how can people keep track of what you're up to, what the team is up to? Where do you point people to mostly? So
I'm very active in Twitter. I use Twitter as a really good means to, understand how our customers are using the product, what feedback they have, what frustrations they tweet. It's a really good medium to understand where your product is and where your features are. Also active in tech community, in the SharePoint area and the tech community, and as well as in the Power Platform. I don't blog in the Power Platform, but we absolutely partner with Power Platform folks to send monthly updates and any other features that we release, blog in the Power Apps blog and in the Power Automation blog. I have my own blog, Chakkaradeep.com. That's my full name, so you can't use my shorter version to get to my website.
Chaks.com was taken?
Was taken, yeah. But Chakkaradeep is a very unique name. I haven't found anybody with that name yet in the world.
Well, we will link to it so people, whether they're going to guess how to spell it or just know how to spell it, we'll make sure to have a link there and other things that you had mentioned. But thank you for your time today to explain a little bit more about this particular feature, insights into the Power Platform, connection to SharePoint, what that all means, not just for government, but I can tell there's a lot of work and integration, probably a lot of conversation, and then a lot of tech work. So thanks for up-leveling that and sharing today.
Thank you, Mark.
I hope you now have a better understanding with how we look at designing the connection and integration with SharePoint lists, Power Apps, and Power Automate to empower makers all over the place, of course, including now government clouds. Don't go away. Teamwork is next. So we have a lot of features in Teamwork, and to get started, we'll talk about updating classic SharePoint team homepages to the modern template. We want to spend a little time here so you're real clear on what we're doing. With this update, classic SharePoint team site homepages that have not been customized will be automatically updated to a modern homepage template. If your site contains only the out-of-box default web parts, such as Getting Started, Document Library, and Newsfeed, it will automatically get updated. The new homepage for your team site makes it easier to post news and to use the site on mobile devices. End users will see a new modern homepage on their first visit after the feature rolls out, and on that first visit, SharePoint will walk them through all the new capabilities. Classic team sites that contain customized components will not be automatically updated. This does not create an Office 365 group for the team site either, which would happen with the creation of a modern team site in SharePoint. Site collection admins or site owners can choose to revert to the previous classic homepage. But if you do nothing, your classic SharePoint team site homepages that contain only out-of-box default web parts will automatically be updated to the modern homepage template. We have a lot of links to resources where you can learn about what we're doing and how you can control and manage this particular rollout, and things that you can do to influence the environment per what your own preferences and governance plans are. The next feature, per-site sharing links, can now be the default to people with existing access. What that means, SharePoint administrators can now set the per-site sharing links default to the people with existing access setting. Prior to this change, administrators could choose either anyone, people in my organization, or specific people when setting the default sharing link on a per-site basis. Once this is set, users who click on the share button or copy the link will receive an existing access link that does not change the permissions on the item. Additional link types are still available in link settings if needed, and this update does not change any existing default settings. Last note, this feature is initially configurable via PowerShell, but will be customizable in the modern SharePoint Admin Center in the future. This next one might be a little bit of a recap, but I just want to cover real briefly what we talked about with Chaks, his specific feature that's rolling out in February 2020. SharePoint integrations with Power Automate and Power Apps moving to the government cloud tenants. For government customers that fall into the maker persona, this update, as you heard Chaks and I talk about, enables people to create and manage custom workflows with Power Automate and custom forms with Power Apps combined with both SharePoint lists and libraries. We're very excited to push this out beyond the commercial clouds into more maker hands into the government cloud. We'll have a great link in the resources that will show you how you can do more with Power Automate and Power Apps in combination with SharePoint lists and libraries. Last in this section is an important update from a previous release. The new Files experience in Microsoft Teams is now released worldwide 100% to all commercial customers. The note here is it's not yet available for government customers in our sovereign tenants. We will keep you posted when the capability moves beyond the commercial cloud. That's it for teamwork. Let's now move to related technology. First up, Microsoft Office app is now available for Android and iOS in its full support. If you installed the public preview of the Office app or the Office mobile app exclusive to our Samsung customers, you will receive this automatic update. The new Office app has all of the capabilities of the existing Word, Excel, and PowerPoint apps and requires significantly less phone storage than installing all three applications. It integrates with Office Lens technology for converting images into editable Word and Excel documents, and of course for scanning whiteboards. It has an actions pane for common mobile tasks, such as creating and signing PDFs or transferring files between devices. And last, it adds sticky notes for capturing ideas on the go. We will continue support and invest in the standalone Word, Excel, and PowerPoint applications for customers who wish to continue to use them. Super easy to install on iOS and Android, and it's a really nice center of gravity for all the things you want to do with Office in one place. We'll have links so you can download for Android and for iOS in the related stores. Next up is a related feature from our peers from OneDrive. We've been talking about this one for a while. Support for migration of OneNote files via known folder move, or what we now call PC folder backup. This is one of the most awaited features, and it's finally here. You now have the ability to migrate local OneNote notebooks to OneDrive via PC folder backup. OneNotes will now be automatically backed up as a part of the PC folder backup move. That's it. It's that simple. No more OneNote cannot be moved errors, and a OneNote notebook off of your desktop and into the cloud is like a breath of fresh air. You'll be able to access it everywhere through all the different endpoints, and it just gives you that rich capability of all your notes where you need them. So if you've ever been blocked with known folder move because of the OneNote file sitting on your desktop, no longer. Let's end the related technology with a last little bit of humor. This is a little bit of office humor thanks to The Verge and a recent Democratic debate. At one of the Democratic debates, Senator Elizabeth Warren described Pete Buttigieg's healthcare plan as just a PowerPoint. And in reply, Pete responded by saying, "I'm more of a Microsoft Word guy." So, of course, in a satirical way, this spawned an article by The Verge where if Pete was Word, then Elizabeth Warren is Excel, Amy Klobuchar is PowerPoint, Michael Bloomberg is Outlook, Bernie Sanders is Teams, and Joe Biden is OneDrive. I won't spoil everything that The Verge wrote because it's quite humorous. If you're interested in learning about how Office relates to the Democratic debates and candidates, it's worth a gander to learn which Microsoft Office product is each Democratic presidential candidate. It's a fun read and certainly a great way to round out February 2020. Now, I know you're on the edge of your seat with everything that's rolled out in February 2020, but let's move into the teasers, a peek into what's next for March 2020. Teaser number 1. That's right. Darth Vader is letting us know that dark mode for the OneDrive mobile app on Android is coming. And, of course, it's already been released for iOS. This is rolling out now for beta Android users, and the dark mode Darth Vader breathing teaser is that it is coming soon, even if you're not a beta user. Teaser number 2, this is a big one, so I'll say it in 4 languages to internationally tease it. So to announce teaser number 2, I'm going to solicit a little help from an AI from the internet.
Publicación multilingüe.
多语言出版
Многоязычная публикация.
다개인고 출판
Polyglosse δημοσίευση. Mehrsprachiges Publizieren.
النشر متعدد اللغات
Publication multilingue.
That is right, translation engine from the internet. Multilingual publishing is teaser number 2. Thank you for your help. We'll share a lot more about both teasers and a ton more in our next episode of the Roadmap Pitstop in March. That's it with the teasers. We'll share a ton more with the full Roadmap Pitstop, March 2020 edition, next month. Time to round out the Roadmap Pitstop with resources. We've added a list of important resource links in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community. These resources will help assist you in learning more about key help articles, information in the Microsoft 365 public roadmap, recent SharePoint and OneDrive community blogs, and all things Twitter, all the places that you need to get up to speed and to stay ahead. We hope you've enjoyed this nice, smooth ride through the pit stop. Stay engaged and ask questions. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward. And to the leapsters leaping this year, age slowly and pit stop often. This is an ageless podcast. Till next month, thanks for tuning in.